In the previous lesson, we covered off the personality types and essentially how you can go about communicating with your clients more effectively if you're mindful of the type of personality that they may have. Now, with the examples I covered in that is very much orientated towards how you might speak to them, so on a call or face-to-face. Same understanding, though, also applies in theory to every other aspect of marketing that you are doing for them. Obviously, in the world of marketing, there is a lot of paperwork, obviously digital paperwork, but we're talking about Word documents, we're talking about spreadsheets, and we're talking about emails. That is information and material that has to be sent across to them in order for them to be able to understand what it is you're doing and to analyse the results that you're going to be working on. Now, those personality types that we went through, it also applies here. So in terms of the physical information that you are sending across to a client, make sure that also that is adapted to it. So again, if you are preparing emails, if you are a blue personality type, for example, and very analytical and objective, you feel free to write a big, long, lengthy email outlining stats and figures and referencing links. Now, if by contrast a person has a very red personality type where they want a be bright, be brief, and be gone attitude, then you just need to be sending out an email which is a sentence, maybe 2 sentences long. It should not be any more than that. Different people have different personality styles when it comes to writing emails, and it's just making sure that, again, you are adapting whatever it is you're writing. Now, the reason for all of this ultimately is so that red person can see the email and go, great, I know they are on the case. You don't need to do any more. Now, if a yellow person is reading that email, they wouldn't probably feel as involved. They want to see that you're doing stuff. They want to see that you are interacting with them and their business. So in that context, you might pad out the email a bit more by asking them lots of questions. There's certain documents out there, though, which you're going to have to send across, and they are going to have to be chunky. They are going to have to be detail orientated, because with a lot of digital marketing, the devil is in the detail. Now, with all of that, it's almost a case of having that base layer of detail, but summarizing it, and then if you need to do so, summarizing it again. So with a lot of the Word documents that I will put together, yes, it might be sort of 10, 15 pages long in terms of, say, looking at a strategy for something, but the first section will include a summary, and the email that I send with that might make a summary which is even shorter than the summary in the document. You've got to also remember that clients aren't necessarily going to have the time and the level of interest that you have put into a document. Sometimes all they need to know is you have done the work, and therefore you know they've got this stuff sitting there for validation. Others do want to go through it in a forensic level of information, but so it is a case of trying to find something which covers all bases. Now, that is not an easy job, and with time and with experience you will get a greater understanding of what works and what doesn't work. This isn't to say in any of those instances, though, where just because a client likes that sort of very top level brief approach, that you don't go into that level of detail. This is also because although they may prefer that, you're going to run a risk down the line of not having that information. Now, the reason for that, and to give you a client example, is I started with a SEO client, and they said, oh, don't keep a record of what you're doing. As long as you know you're doing the right thing, then, we're happy, and we'll obviously see the work reflected in the results. Now, for me, you go, well, fine, but I did end up keeping a quite detailed spreadsheet of what I was doing anyway. Now, that acts as a useful resource for me because I know what I've done, and also acts as a planner for what I'm going to do in the future. But it also acts as backup so that if a client queries something or can't remember if you've done something, or just, is asking questions, there is a written source of evidence and a historical documentation of what you have done and haven't done. But to summarize, make sure, first of all, that you are documenting everything you do, adapting that information as you go along to reflect the client, and if necessary, summarizing it and summarizing it again, so that even if the client isn't properly going into the level of detail, which you kind of hope they would, that they still have a valuable source of information that you send across to them to ensure that as and when it comes to it, they can tap into that information and know that you're doing a really thorough and effective job.